talking about selling a Spanish property. And we're joined by Andy Bridge from A Place in the Sun, and also by James Vizetelly from Affinity Property Group. So we're going to record this session, and then it'll be available to be viewed on our YouTube channel. But just so you're aware, just as an update for those of you who aren't in Spain at the moment, today, the 29th of May, it's been announced that Malaga and Granada provinces will go through to phase 2 of the de-escalation on Monday. And that means that basically shopping centres will open up. So, good news for shopaholics. Bars and restaurants, the inside of those will be opening, and they'll only be able to open up a capacity of 50%. Bars and terraces are open already, but only if you've got an outside bar and terrace. So, and then you'll be able to do exercise at any time of the day. So slowly we're moving into phase 2. And then we're hoping that by the end of June, most of Spain would have gone through the next 2 phases, which is phase 3 and 4, which will basically give us a lot more freedom. And then fingers crossed, the borders to Spain will open on the 1st of July. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Andy Bridge from A Place in the Sun. Andy, welcome. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Alex. Yes, nice to see you all.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yep, I'm in leafy southeast London in Lewisham, so decent day here today. Obviously not comparable to gorgeous weather you have in Spain, but yeah, we're all fine over here.
Excellent, good news. So aplaceinthesun.com, Andy, not only advertises live exhibitions but also has a property portal. So how many properties for Spain do you have on the web, and what are the stats looking like at the moment?
Yeah, so just briefly on the background, so lots of people are familiar with the TV show A Place in the Sun, and the business that I run is a separate company to that. So we're licensed by the TV company to take that brand and use it elsewhere. So we have A Place in the Sun magazine, we have A Place in the Sun live exhibitions, and we have the website aplaceinthesun.com, and we also have our own currency company, Place in the Sun Currency. So the biggest part of our business now is the web portal. And we have about 90-odd thousand properties on the website, and over a third of those are actually in Spain. So Spain is by far the most popular country on our website, and that ties in with the types of companies that exhibit at our shows as well. We have about 60 to 70% of the people who walk through the doors at our exhibitions are looking for a property in Spain. So it really is the dominant country when it comes to for British buyers that we typically attract looking to buy abroad. And yeah, within that, so as I checked this morning, there were just over 36,000 properties for Spain, and 14,000 of those in the Costa Blanca, and almost 9,000 in the Costa del Sol. So again, those two regions, I accept they're very large areas, but they dominate the listings for Spain. And clearly the reasons these listings are on there is because an estate agent in one of those markets chooses to pay us a sum of money, an entirely reasonable amount, we would say, to list properties on our website and try to attract inquiries from potential British buyers.
Of course, I'm sure the fees are reasonable, Andy, and it doesn't cost to visit the website. So have the stats played off during the lockdown? Have you had more people visiting the website? Has it increased, decreased compared to last year?
Yeah, I think not unlike other portals and lots of websites in numerous sectors, people are reporting record traffic levels. It's all slightly neutered because people can't go on and do anything meaningful at the moment. But yeah, our traffic month to date in May is actually 80% up on last year. Right. So we'll end up with over 550,000 unique users on the website, and they'll generate somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 individual property inquiries. So different people inquiring on a property. We have about 450 agents listing with us at the moment. That's already down from about 500 2-3 months ago, because obviously the period that people are listing their properties comes to an end, and some of them choose to renew or not renew. Typically they renew, about 85% renew, but obviously with the impact of COVID-19, some agencies are not in a position to renew their listings, so they come down, so therefore there are fewer properties on the website. So, you know, we speak to estate agents in Spain every day, and they're reporting the same thing, this huge frustration that there is clearly this demand and this desire and this appetite to look at property. I mean, and some of it, let's be frank, some of it is property porn. People like to go on there and view and just watch. But there is a tranche of people within that audience who definitely want to get on a plane and get out and buy. So that's the huge frustration where we are at the moment in the market, that we're almost frozen in time. There's people browsing over here, people sending inquiries, being received by people like James in the Costa del Sol, and we're all trying to keep that interest alive within that pipeline, whether it's James offering virtual tours or giving them more information about a potential property. We're all trying to keep that interest live for when we can reignite the sector and people can start traveling out to Spain again, which is obviously critical to the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of almost not surprising, those figures, Andy, to a certain extent, if agents aren't going to renew their advertising if people can't get out to see those properties, I suppose. But hopefully they'll come back on board when the flight's open. Yeah,
I mean, as we've all had to do, I'm sure, I reforecasted our business. Well, I've done a few versions actually. I think I'm on version 7, but I was far more pessimistic when it came to our web business than has proven to be the case over this last 2 months. Most agents have wanted to continue a presence. They recognise that although you can't sell that person a property right now, or it's highly unlikely you can do that, you get them into your pipeline and you can start talking to them, and you can retain their interest and then try and engage them when they're able to travel. So for a monthly outlay on listings, the vast majority of agents are still choosing to do that. Obviously, there are some agents who don't have the cash flow or choose not to do that, and that's entirely understandable. It's different in a way from exhibitions because, you know, exhibitions, people have to travel over here, take a stand, get flights, book hotels. That's very different. So the appetite for booking an exhibition stand at the moment is close to zero. But for renewing listings, most people are still wanting to do that because they recognise the benefits of still being able to talk to people. I mean, what else can you do if that's your business? You still have to do something. Otherwise, when things do start up again, you're not really in the game. You know, there's a danger, there's a lag before you start to catch up with other people who've already got inquiries on board.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. So just to clarify and confirm, you know, as a property portal, you do not vet the agents or the properties. That would be for the buyers and their independent lawyers to do as and when a price is agreed. Because some people may think that maybe you do carry out some kind of vetting, but that's not the case, is it?
Yeah, I think more so with us because of the TV show and what happens on the TV show. Sometimes there's confusion from our audience that there might be some kind of regulatory environment where we check properties, but clearly that'd be a very dangerous thing to do. Well, we're not set up to do that. We're a small business of 12 people. We have a magazine, events, the website. We're all very busy. But yeah, we just like the UK property website, Rightmove. Well, Rightmove does overseas properties as well. But you know, Rightmove doesn't go out and check a property when it lists it on its website. In the same way that the Times newspaper doesn't check whether a Jaguar is a good car when it takes an advert from it. You know, it's just a paid-for advertising space. So you've been involved in all our different media over the years, and you know that we push very heavily the idea that people should engage with an independent lawyer to act in their interests when they move forward with a property purchase. So we're very clear where we stand on that. I mean, we do also think you have to be careful in that space. We recognise that some agents will recommend lawyers, and that's understandable. They know people in the area who are familiar with some of the developments and they know the local landscape. So we don't say never use an agent recommended by an estate agent, because often, you know, they might be the better agents in the area. But we do stress the notion that you really do need to get an independent lawyer that you contract, you pay for, and they protect your interests just as they would if you were buying a property in the UK, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Costa Blanca, first area which is very popular. Then the Costa del Sol. And what are the other areas that kind of closely follow those?
Yeah, I mean, even within the Costa Blanca, it's mainly sort of central south Costa Blanca going into Costa Calida. So they're the key areas. We get interested in Costa Almeria as well. That's quite popular. But they are the most popular areas. I mean, we spend a lot of our time talking about Spain and writing content on Spain, but we do try to cover, not to the same level, but we have to cover France and Portugal and Italy and Turkey and Cyprus and Florida, and we have quite a wide remit for a pretty small team, because there are more people inquiring on Spain doesn't mean that the tranche of people who are looking to buy in France are not equally important to us and to our business. So the whole premise on the website is to try to provide more than just a property portal. So again, referencing something like Rightmove or Zoopla, they're very highly sophisticated property listings websites for finding a volume of properties. And what we've tried to do is build our site out. Our point of difference is editorial content around that, whether it's buying guides, articles, testimonials, interviews, contributor pieces from professionals in the field. That's our point of difference to provide an editorial environment around those property listings. But yeah, to go back to your question, those are very much the key areas. I mean, a lot of the interest does get prompted by the TV show. So there's been a new series running for the last 3 weeks at 3 o'clock UK time, and I'm just guessing now it will be on our website somewhere, but of the last 16 episodes that went out, the brand new ones that have gone out in the last month, I'm guessing 10 to 12 of those would be Spain.
Wow.
So that reflects also the way that the program is commissioned. There's a lot of programming for Spain. I think we've had Costa Tropical, we've had the Mar Menor region. There were people out in Fuerteventura. So yeah, it's the Spanish content of the TV show and also of our website is significant.
But we Isabel and I have seen that when we've been to the exhibitions. We've seen Costa Blanca kind of nudges Costa del Sol out a little bit, but then close, very, very close together. But then after those two areas, it tends to be Almeria, Murcia, and then the Canaries and the Balearics. That's the kind of general split of clients we kind of tend to talk to when we're at the exhibitions.
So yeah, I think budget considerations are important. I think there's a perception among some people that Costa del Sol's more expensive, and clearly there are areas that are. When we exit survey people who come to our exhibitions, we get about 200-300 people responding, and typically in Manchester this year, which was the last exhibition that we did, the average budget that people had was £190,000. So clearly there's a lot of people shopping around with 80,000, 90,000, 100,000, and there are people with higher budgets as well. But that's the average sort of budget of our exhibition visitor. And it's similarly the searches on the website. I mean, there's so many searches, it's hard to keep track, but it's a similar sort of point as well, a price point. But I mean, there are, if there's a show airs on Channel 4 in the afternoon for a particularly cheap property in a particular location, then we do get a lot of searches on that type of property. Clearly, bargain basement prices do attract a higher volume of inquiries, and as somebody like James will well know, it's all about filtering out the serious people from the browsers.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the average price. What's the kind of typical property that they're looking for? Again,
that's driven by location and really how much that type of budget will get you. I think without wanting to sound too much like the TV show, that people have their checklist of what they'd like, and then inevitably have to compromise on something. I think there is a core market that is looking for a lock up and leave type apartment, and low maintenance, got some rentability to friends and family, and maybe an extended family group, and not much maintenance. So I think it really depends the profile of the buyer, in particular the age of the buyer. So you know, a younger buyer looking for something easy to maintain might want something like that. If somebody's a little bit older and thinking, well, I might start working from there a couple of months a year because I can now work remotely, and I might semi-retire in a couple of years, then typically they might want something a bit bigger, because ultimately they see themselves ending up there and living there. I think one of the significant changes over the years since we've been doing this, and certainly post the financial crisis, is you know, a lot of people back then were, oh, I'll sell up here and go out there, and that was the big commitment. I think a lot of people now like to, as they would say, maintain the best of both worlds, and if they can have either a lock up and leave over there and there's still their principal property over here, or the other way around, I think that's for a lot of people that's their dream, because it feels that they don't completely disconnect from their home country. They're still connected to family and grandchildren, that kind of thing. So I think that has changed quite significantly over the years.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the selling process. We have put on the chat box. We've got the chat box on the right here, or the bottom of your screen. If you've got any questions, you do place them in there, and we'll try and get to them as we get through the seminar. But listen, Isabel, if you can talk us through the first steps of someone wishing to sell their property, what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, I would recommend to start gathering the property documents, which will be requested by the buyer's lawyer, and those that will be necessary for completion, really. So this will speed up the process. Basically, I would say, well, the purchase title deed. This is the escritura de compraventa, the deed they signed when they bought. The land registry, updated information. This is the nota simple. It's good to have it at hand in order to see if there is any charge or any issue or discrepancy maybe the vendor was not aware of. To put you an example, some vendors which had a mortgage loan, they finish paying the mortgage, but they do not remove the mortgage from the registry, and they do not get aware of this until the buyer points that out. So it's good that they can do this in advance. In the third place, I would say get a copy of your planning permissions. This is the first occupation license, what we call licencia de primera ocupación, or habitation certificate. This is cédula de habitabilidad, depends on the region. The name of this document is different. I would also suggest to get copies of the last council tax bill. This is the EB bill, IBI, as well as the copy of the latest bills for the utilities and the rubbish collection fee, if there is any. This is basura bill. In addition, it is important if the vendor, if the property is in a community of owners, in a complex, it would be necessary to get the details for the administration office, as well as minutes for the last 3 years general meeting, and the copy of the bylaws. This is the estatutos. Once the completion date is confirmed, it will be necessary to get a certificate to specify that there is no outstanding bill on the date of completion. So this is something the vendor's lawyer will do later within the process. In addition, it is advisable to start instructing the energy certificate, which is going to be requested for completion purposes, and, well, complete a property inventory list if the property is going to be sold with some furniture. In what regards the vendor's personal circumstances, it's good to get the certificate from the tax office if the vendor is a tax resident in Spain. And this is necessary in order to avoid the buyer retaining the 3% of the sale price, which we will explain later, which is a payment into account of the capital gain tax when the vendor is non-resident. If the vendor is non-resident, it is also good to check if the annual income tax for non-residents has been paid for the last 4 years. Many vendors are not aware of this tax, and if they are non-tax residents and they do not have a gain and they want to get the 3% back from the tax office, they will have to prove that this income tax has been paid at least for the last 4 years. So if they haven't paid it or they were not aware of this, it's good that at this earlier stage they check this and have the time to regularize that before completion. Finally, if the vendor is not going to come personally to Spain for completion meeting, or if there is any doubt whether he will be able to come, it would be good to get a power of attorney to be signed in favor of the lawyer so that the lawyer can sign on his behalf. Those would be the essential documents I would suggest to start gathering at this earlier stage.
Thank you, Isabel. So we're now pleased to welcome James from Affinity Group. Thank you, James, for joining us. Please introduce yourself and your business.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are a company's Affinity Spain. We've been selling property on the Costa del Sol from Malaga to Sotogrande since we initially launched in 2007. We were a two-person team at the time working from our dining table. Now we've grown to one of the largest agents on the Costa del Sol, largely thanks to Place in the Sun as well with their advertising. We have quite a big team now. We're a team of around, I think at the moment we've got 23 people in the office, we cover all budgets of the market from the bottom end around about 90 to 100,000 up to in the millions, unlimited.
Excellent. And James, how's lockdown affected your business? And are you open now?
Yeah, we've so obviously we sent everybody home when the lockdown started. We've been trying to run on a skeleton basis of staff since then. We had a 2-week period where nobody could leave the house, of course. We had no one in there, but we were still trying to work as best as possible from home. We've continued with our marketing with Place in the Sun. It's worked incredibly well. We've seen unprecedented numbers of new inquiry and brand new inquiries. So I'm not talking about clients re-inquiring. I don't know where everybody's coming from, but there seems to be a whole new breed of people looking for properties. And we're speaking to every single client. We make a rule that we call every client. Obviously, some don't answer the phone, but we do eventually speak to them. And everybody seems to be very, very positive. There's a few negative people out there, but in general, everyone's really positive and they just can't wait to jump on a flight to wherever they need to go to buy property or to at least start the search process.
Excellent. So that's very interesting. And you obviously spoke to Andy. You spoke to James before coming on the seminar today. So James, what's the kind of average budget of your purchases, and what are the most popular areas on the Costa del Sol?
So the average is at the moment, based on our inquiries, it's just under 200,000 euros, around about 190, 195, which is normally the sort of budget that we run on per year. That's normally around about our average sale is about between sort of 200 to 250. By far the most popular area at the moment, which it's been like this for some time now, is the Mijas Costa area around sort of Calahonda, Riviera, Miraflores, La Cala in particular. We've seen quite a large number of new inquiries coming through on the west side of Marbella now. So Estepona would be our second, then heading down to Casares and La Duquesa, very, very popular, where you can still get some incredible deals. And where budgets allow, Nueva Andalucía in Marbella has become very, very popular, but prices here they're still quite high. But by far at the moment, Mijas stands out a mile in front of all other areas.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So James, a couple of weeks ago, we had a surveyor and valuer on the seminar, and they were talking about basically when properties are advertised for sale, they're always advertised maybe a little bit higher, just to test the market out, and then by and large, prices come down, or the price agreed between the buyer and the seller eventually is probably about 10% less. Do you see that happening now? Do you agree with that figure? And do you think, for example, because of COVID-19 and the crisis we've had, and still enduring, and the financial crisis to come, prices may be affected?
What we've seen at the moment, obviously, the first thing that first week, obviously we didn't know how long the lockdown was going to last. But in the first week, we had the guy in charge of our new listings department call every single vendor. And we've been obviously trying to reconnect with people because we've had the time, and where possible to try to get some sort of price reduction or some sort of guidance on what the vendors believe is going to happen in the market. At the moment, and we do a very good job of this, but at the moment we've had very few vendors that have agreed to drop prices. Now, I think we've made a few sales over lockdown via remote viewings, and in general, the average price drop is just over 10%. So about 11–12% has been our average price drop. So it's not as you've got a lot of people that are quite negative over this, but what you've got here is a very different situation. I'm not an economist, but to 2008, I worked in the city in London, and it's a very different market to what it is then, what it was back then. Vendors are not in a desperate position at the moment. Maybe they will be in the future, but at the moment, we're not seeing that. Even we sell a lot of bank properties, and we've had a few price reductions from the bank, but after speaking to them, they're not moving their prices. So I think there's still a bit of negotiation to be had at the point of sale, but looking for price drops beforehand, and this is across the board. I would say I speak to quite a lot of owners of large agencies down here, and everyone is in the same situation where vendors aren't dropping prices, but that doesn't mean there's a deal to be done at the time of negotiation.
Yeah, interesting. I was talking to an agent this week, and they said that basically because the borders potentially will be open in July, that means that a lot of British people and foreigners who own property in Spain will actually be able to rent their property and get some money in to pay their mortgages and the costs for the year. So that is going to be a great help. And if that hadn't happened, then the situation could have been a lot worse, because they would have been out of pocket. They've had to fund it themselves, and that could have forced a desperate sale. So hopefully, that the borders opening is obviously good news. So
I was just going to add there, if I may, Alex.
Yeah.
As James was talking, I was just looking at the new TV episode that's going out in half an hour in the UK on Channel 4, and it's a couple from Dundee looking to buy a 2-bedroom apartment in Mijas Costa, and 2 of them in Riviera del Sol, 2 in Calahonda and 1 in El Faro. So 150,000 pound budget, so a little bit lower than James might like, but yeah, that's the episode that's going out this afternoon. So it backs up what James was saying about the popularity of that area.
Thanks for that, Andy. And we know that area quite well. We've actually had clients buying just next to La Cala Torrenueva, and I seem to remember they bought property for about 140,000. So the Dundee couple might be in luck today. You never know. So James, we've talked about collating the documents. I bet you must love a seller that comes to you with all those documents, says, here are all my documents, and I've got my lawyer on board. But once they've done that, what practical advice can you offer them to get their property ready for sale?
Obviously, having those documents is key. Legally, we're not allowed to market a property without all those documents in place. So we are very strict in what we take from the clients. Obviously, to have it passed by a lawyer in one file, in one email is amazing. The next step, which I'm sure everyone's already been doing, is if they're out here especially, is just have the property ready and presentable from a cleanliness point of view, and a decluttering point of view. What we found over the last year, 18 months, there's been a massive rise in sales of off-plan developments, where we walk a client into a brand new pristine show flat, and you then go into a resale that's been on the market for maybe 3 or 4 months, and the owner doesn't live here. It's maybe 10 or 15 years old, 20 years old, and it just doesn't compare. So if you've got a property to sell, just remember that your main competition, maybe not now with what may happen in the market, but your competition is a show flat. So you want to try and have sometimes it's difficult. If you live in the property, there's certain things that you can't remove, but if where possible, try to declutter. Remember that some clients can't see through all the furniture that's inside a property. Something interesting I saw on location was Kirsty said, when you walk into a property, look at the ceiling, because that's your footprint of the property basically, but it's hard when you're walking around to look at the ceiling. So yeah, just try to declutter where possible, decorate if you can. What service that we've just started, obviously since lockdown, is we were trialing it before lockdown, but we've gone all out on it now, is videoing properties with as realistic videos as possible, walk around so clients can get a really good idea of what the property's like before they come. Sometimes they might not even need to come down, they're buying remotely. So the problem with an HD video is it picks up every single piece of dirt and mess in that property. And this week we've cancelled 2 video shoots just because things like they had animals and there was dog fur and just bits and pieces lying around that it ruins the video. So it's really just declutter and just try and have the property as presentable as possible.
Excellent. So yeah, so the competition is the show flat. Wow, that's tough competition, eh? So Patricia, we've got a buyer for our seller. They've collated all the documents. They've handed those over to us. Can you just talk us through the next steps that a buyer and a seller will take once an offer's been accepted?
Yes. Well, hello to everybody. Once the buyer has made the offer, and if this is accepted, then congratulations. First step is done. There are typically 3 stages in the sales process once the offer has been accepted. First of all, the estate agent, it is likely to arrange for the buyer to sign a reservation contract to secure the deal, and then pay a reservation fee that normally it's between 3,000 to 6,000 euros. That's allow the buyer's lawyer to check the property documents and ensure that everything is in order and in place. After this reservation document is signed and a deposit is paid, normally there is a second stage, which is signing a private purchase contract and then pay 10% of the purchase price less the deposit already paid. And then the third stage it's basically completion, completion of the sale, which takes place before a notary in the notary office, and the keys are handed and the rest of the purchase price it's paid to the vendor. That's the general, but actually some sales take place only with the reservation contract, some others with the 3-step reservation contract, purchase contract, and then completion. But also there are also sellers that prefer to go directly to completion and don't pay a deposit and don't get a deposit. So basically that's it.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, so sometimes we get people make an offer on a property, and rather than sign any documents, they just want to go straight to the notary and complete that. So Isabel, some sellers have make additions to their property during their ownership. What advice do you have for them before they put their property on the market or once it's on the market?
Oh yeah, as I mentioned before, it's good to get at the lawyer to check in advance the property registry situation. So if there's been an extension, it will be necessary to update the registry records. And even if this is not compulsory for what is the completion purposes, this is something that the vendors will normally do at the end of the day as part of the contract conditions, since any buyer who detects or the buyer's lawyer detects that there is a discrepancy, they will want the property being registered properly and the situation being correct for completion purposes. So it is possible to either start the process of regularization if there's been an extension, either before finding a buyer, or wait until there is a buyer and then agree this to be done as part of the process before the completion takes place, or it may be agreed between the parties that on completion date the buyer's lawyer will retain some funds to the vendor in order to complete this process of regularization. Basically, if there has been an extension, it will be necessary to get an architect to produce a report to confirm which is the current description of the property, including measurement, and in some cases it may be necessary to get as well a certificate from the town hall office to confirm that there are no planning infraction or denounces against this property, especially if we're talking about a rural property, and this town hall certificate can take some time to be issued. So this is why one of the possibilities is starting this process of regularizing land registry records when the property is started being in the market. Talking about a rural property, if this property is in Andalusian region, it may be also necessary to consider the possibility to obtain the AFO certificate in order to regularize the planning situation of this property. We were talking about this AFO certificate in our last webinar last week. So if anyone is interested, there is some more information at our website.
That's great. So James, if you receive instructions from a seller, and they've mentioned to you, look, I've extended the swimming pool, I've extended the house. What kind of, do you tell them to kind of sort the paperwork out and regularize that before the sale?
We would normally, is to have a property. The worst case scenario is that you sell a property and then you get to the legal stage and then the sale cancels. The buyer tends to have left and gone back to their home country, unless they've got a short list of 2 or 3 properties and can move on to the next one. We've got an unhappy buyer, an unhappy vendor. And so we'd always say to our vendors, legalise your property where possible beforehand. But the best thing to do is just speak to your lawyer. An estate agent shouldn't be giving legal advice, and I believe a lawyer shouldn't be can give property advice, but we can't be giving legal advice. It has to go back to the lawyer. Has to.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with you. So basically, general advice is, if you've extended the property, sort the deeds out, add that extra swimming pool or garage to the deeds before you put the property up for sale, or at least let the estate agent know so that they can tell the buyer about that, so the buyer's aware and there isn't a nasty surprise down the road.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Patricia, just tell us, completions. What happens at completion?
Well, at completion, the buyer and the seller meet at the notary's office, and then that's the moment when the sales deed is signed, and then the seller hands over the keys to the buyer and also receive the payment, which is typically made by a banker's draft for the agreed price, less all the money that has been paid beforehand on account of the purchase price, and also if there are retentions applicable or retentions that has been negotiated by the parties, but that's the final price it's paid. Then you will need to attend the notary along with all the documents that are necessary, which basically are all the documents that we have talked about. Your legal title when you bought the property, latest IBI receipt, town hall rates, proof of payment of the last town hall rates, the original copy of the energy certificate to be handed to the buyer, and if you have extended the property and you have the certificate from the architect, you have them and you take it with you as well to the notary, or if you have applied for the certificate of no breaches, you take it with you, license of first occupation, etc.
Excellent. And Isabel, if someone's got a mortgage, what's the procedure there?
Well, if there is a mortgage loan, then it will be necessary to make contact with the bank to obtain the certificate to confirm which is the balance on the date of completion, and this balance will have to be deducted out of the sale price and it will be paid to the bank on completion date, normally by a banker's check. The bank, the person coming on behalf of the bank, will be signing the mortgage cancellation deed, and this deed will be taken to the land registry for the registry to update the records and to remove the mention of a mortgage loan. It is common practice that the buyers retain the estimate cost for this process, for the cost of the removal at the registry to the vendor on completion date, and then the buyer's lawyer will ensure that the mortgage cancellation deed is duly registered, as it is in the buyer's interest to ensure that the property is registered in the buyer's name free from charges.
Excellent. And Patricia, if normally a lot of our clients are non-residents, what happens there on the tax situation? How much do they pay and how much is retained from the purchase price?
If you are a non-resident and you sell a property, then your buyer is obligated to retain 3% of the purchase price and pay that to the Spanish tax authorities on account of the capital gains tax. After completion, if you have actually not made a gain or the gain is less than this 3% that has been paid, you have 4 months to prepare a tax rebate and request the Spanish tax authorities to refund you the difference or the full retention. The capital gains tax at the moment it's a 19%. That's the tax rate. So you can you have to consider all costs that you made when you bought the property, the land registry fees, notary fees, if there are legal fees, transfer tax, of course, and then you can deduct from the sales all the expenses as well. For example, agent fees or legal fees, etc. If you are a Spanish tax resident, then you include the sale of the property in the annual tax return, which is made the year after completion, and you can also invest these funds to reduce your capital gains tax.
Excellent. And if you're over the age of 65 and you sell your main residence and you've been a tax resident for 3 years, then there's no capital gains tax as well. Okay. We've got a question from David Maltby.
I have a property in a place called Rio Gordo, which is quite far inland in Asharkia, and it's been on the market 2 years now, and we've gradually reduced the price and still no buyers. Now, the feedback that I've had from the agents that are handling it is that our village properties are not selling, it's not the right time, not the right kind of market. And yet there's nothing really wrong with the house. It's in good state of repair, and maybe it's just that it's a village property and these days they're not selling. You can't compare that to a show flat, for example, because there are no show flats in Rio Gordo. So we're kind of wondering what techniques we can employ to actually get this thing sold.
Yeah, obviously I don't know the area myself, but this comes down to simple marketing. Do you know how many agents, I'll ask you a few questions, how many agents you have it on with? Because sometimes if it's been on the market for a while, it might be worth listing it with a few different agents.
Yeah, well, it's on with I think about 4, but then they use things like resales online.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is networked throughout Spain and probably several other countries as well. And I also market it myself on things like Facebook, you know. So every now and again we try and refresh photographs and things like this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we use resales online as well. So you've got everything. You've got the whole market covered with that. What are the photographs that they're using? What are they good quality?
Oh yeah. I mean, they're pretty high high definition photos. There's a couple of things. There's a couple of negatives that we understand. You know, first of all, there's not much around there. It is a village house, not even a townhouse as we would describe it. It's just a village house. It originally started off as a 1-bedroom place, and then it was converted to 2-bedroom with an underbuild. So there are negatives, but over the course of the last 2.5 years, we dropped the price from about 90k, and we're now down at 65. So I don't think price in itself is an issue in comparison with similar other properties in the village. The main thing to me is that we're just not getting viewings.
Ordinarily, that's going to be my next question about the price, where you sit in the market alongside other comparable properties in the area. I know I can see you've dropped the price considerably already. It tends to, if you've got one agent on listing the property and they're doing a bad job, that's fine. If you've got 4 on there and and in your opinion they seem to be doing, from a marketing perspective, what they need to be doing, ultimately it will come down to price. Now, I don't know how much further you need to go or are able to go with that price, but ultimately that's what it will come down to. We would always try and start with the basics, like photos, maybe a video might help, a good quality video. Maybe see where your agents are actually marketing. Facebook is great if you're doing that yourself, but are they marketing on, for example, on A Place in the Sun or any other property portals? If they're not, they should be, because to try and find a buyer just using resales online is very difficult. You're relying.
Yeah. I did get a call some weeks ago from one of the agents who said that it was being featured as an entry-level property on Place in the Sun.
Right.
That's good. So Andy, have you got any other tips for David?
think James has done a pretty good job there. I mean, there's no magic touch, is there? Unfortunately, and it is about the marketing channels that you employ. And we're not the only website out there. There's the Rightmove has overseas property. There's another website you might have heard of called Kiero that has quite a lot of overseas traffic. I mean, is there any interest are you specifically targeting international buyers, or is there potentially interest from a local buyer? And if other properties are selling locally in the village, then why is not yours, is the question that I would ask.
That village is really kind of under-resourced. There's no local agent. There's no agent in the village, or indeed in quite a few of the other villages around it. And the nearest place is Vélez Málaga, which is some way away. It's been a very difficult sell. We've put a lot of effort into this and a lot of time. But to me, the main cause is just not actually getting viewings. There's something about either this place. I don't think it's the property. I think it's potentially the place that just does not attract buyers. And I'm wondering what else we can do to try and get much more interest in the property and in that area.
Can I give a little opinion?
Yeah,
please do, Fred. I was gonna come to you in a minute, Fred. Good to see you on the seminar. And after you've spoken to David, answer this question. Please ask your question as well that you posed.
Well, responding to David's question, we just recently had other properties in similar situations. And what I actually told the owners that, in my opinion, these properties are overexposed. So if clients, potential clients, see a property too often in many places, it can be overexposed. They think there's something wrong with it. What I've advised some of my clients is to take the property off the market for 5-6 months. So to let it cool down a little bit and then come back on the market again. Another thing is sometimes that people don't have a fantasy with a property. So you must be able to tell them what they can do with it. They can use it as a weekend home, or they can use it as an Airbnb or whatever. People have no fantasy. You have to help them with that. I think James and the other colleagues here, they know what I mean. Some properties, when you look at them that right, then you would say, what can I do with it? So you have to help the buyers to tell them what possibilities they have with the property. I don't know.
Good idea, actually. Good suggestion.
Yes. And then sometimes, but you already said that, what we also did, we hired professional photographers, and then we had new pictures taken, but from a different angle, because people, all we agents always tend to find the best corner and take the pictures from the house from the same corner. So on every website, even taken with different cameras, you will see the same house. People recognize it immediately. So you have to try to give the different angles so it looks like something different, new on the market.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good idea. What I hadn't thought of is to market it as a low-cost Airbnb place, which I will try. So yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know the property, but the whole story is that you as an agent must look at the property and look what features you can point out, or what possibilities clients will have with it.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks for that.
Thank you for that, Fred. And I think you've got another question that perhaps you wanted to ask.
Well, actually, I don't know how long time we have, because I've got a few points here I would like to mention.
Yeah, we've got 7 minutes left.
Okay, well, I will do it as quick as possible. A question for Andy would be, you told what people are looking for, more or less, but we didn't get a hint of, are they looking for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms? What is the general feeling you have in the market?
We have so many searches taking place that, I mean, that they're looking for all sorts of things. I think the general point I was trying to make there was it is typically driven by budget, and people then like to see what they can get for their money. And obviously that varies quite a lot, even within the last 18 months. 150,000 pounds would have got you 150,000 euros, 180,000 euros. So people want to maximize the budget that they've got. They don't generally go out, I don't think, and say, oh, I've got 150, but I found the thing I want for 110. You know, they actually want to get as much as they can for their budget. So again, depends on the profile of the buyer. A lock up and leave. If somebody's buying a townhouse or a detached villa, then yes, people want 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. So I think it's that kind of dream. I mean, people, I know there's been a lot of volatility in the housing market in Spain. For a lot of British people, property still represents hugely good value in Spain, and people coming up to later in life and paid off a mortgage, perhaps drawing down a pension, getting 25% release tax-free. You know, there's obviously not everybody. There's a lot of people facing a lot of hardship, particularly at the moment. But for a significant number of people, they have this money around. You know, on the TV series on Thursday last week, there were a couple in Gran Canaria with, I think, £380,000 from Edinburgh, and you know that's a significant amount of cash to be walking around with to buy a second property. So I think it very much depends on circumstance. I mean, what we do when we interact with people on our website, the sorts of content that we put up there, we try to get people to really drill down into what they want, because I know this is more the agent's role, but if we can prepare them, it's a good starting point, because they might have an idea of what they want. Oh, they want to be right by the beach, but actually, do they want to be by that premium and that busyness and noisiness and smaller property? And do they want all those restrictions of being by the beach, or actually would they rather have a larger place a little bit inland with a pool? So do they want to rent it out, in which case you don't really want to be more than an hour and a half from the airport? Then you do need the 2-3 bedrooms if you're going to try and target a family market. You know, all these things, getting them to think more seriously, because I think the biggest challenge for people coming to a website like ours, and for us trying to funnel people's interest, I mean, when it's not our job to force people to buy who don't want to buy, but it's helpful if we can help people define what they really want and find out if they do really want to buy something, because that's such a key point. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, but it's a key point. And then the biggest point is narrowing it down, because typically if you're buying a property in the UK, you know, I live in London. If my job was to relocate and I had to go to Edinburgh, I'd know where I wanted to be. I'd be looking at schools. You know, people are starting out saying, oh, I want a place in Spain. And apart from that, and I've got £125,000, you know, we get all sorts of random emails from people saying, I've got this amount of money. Where should I buy? Where's best? And clearly there isn't a best. There's, you know, first of all, start off by looking at your local transport hubs. What accessibility do you have? You know, don't rely on one carrier to one airport. Make sure there's 2 carriers. Do you want to rent it out? Do you drive? What age are you? Do you need access to what type of amenities? You know, trying to get people focused on what they want. I know this is not the answer you're looking for, because you wanted me to tell you most people are looking for a 2-bed apartment. I think it is so driven by budget, and people can see that they can get a lot more property than they can typically in the UK for their money, and they're generally keen to maximize their budget. And it's almost a standing joke on the TV show, this phrase wiggle room. You know, people have always got 180 grand and some wiggle room, so they've got 200, and they've probably got to pay 11% Alex's reasonable fees, taxes, everything else on top. So, you know, people have the dream. It's still a dream. And I think your point that you made to David about telling a story about a property and the lifestyle that property can afford and what you can do with it is a very good point, because people do have that real excitement about buying a property overseas. You know, it's our audience. Typically, they're not serial property investors. They don't have huge property portfolios. They might own and have paid off their primary residence, and then this is something they've dreamt about forever and a day, and this is an exciting thing. So they want the outside space. They want the view. You know, they can see themselves with a coffee in the morning on the terraza or a glass of wine. It is that dream idea. So they don't really want to turn up and see a dark, small space with no outside room just to be able to have a place in Spain. I don't think they want something they haven't got at home, and they want a bit of excitement and you know, a bit of glitz and glamour, and that can be done for a relatively affordable budget.
So that's what I was trying to tell David, actually, that you have to give them you have to help their fantasy. And sometimes it helps if you just put a bottle of champagne on the table with 2 glasses and some grapes and take a picture of that, and they will get
Champagne always helps.
Yes, yes.
Any situation.
Yeah, and if not, we drink it ourselves. Somehow, in between all of us professionals in this business, there always seems to be a kind of hesitation in explaining probable buyers the extra costs, like maintenance costs, municipal rates, or the taxes they have to pay once they want to sell the property. Many people, they look very surprised when they bought from you, they're happy, and if they come to you and they say they want to sell, and then they find out that at the sales price they will have to deduct like 20% in between the taxes, the fees, and the whole story. I always try to be honest upfront, and I tell my clients the whole story from the beginning even to the end when they leave the keys and go back home after selling a property. My experience with many British clients is that they don't know when they buy a property they have to pay community fees or rates to the town hall. They usually are the biggest debtors to these places. I think there's a total lack of information from all of us who work in this industry.
I think Fred, it's a very good point. I do, you know, reputable agents do speak to buyers about the ongoing costs of the property. I know when we prepare our legal reports for buyers, we send them copies of the invoices for town hall rates, for water, electric, so they've got a feel for how much the property is going to cost them. But listen, at the same time, you know, these people have got some, you know, money in their pocket. They're coming out, they're making an investment, and the best thing they can do is preparation. Just as the sellers we talked about, prepare all the documents, and the buyers, it's the same. Prepare. Talk to agents, talk to lawyers, and find out the area, find out the region you're interested in, visit those areas, and then, as you know, each region has different taxes depending when you buy. So that's all about their preparation. Andy organised some great exhibitions on a yearly basis across the UK where we talk about these things to clients. So there's a lot of information out there for buyers, and if you have a look on our website, there's a budgeting for your purchase leaflet in our advice downloads on the My Law in Spain website. Please feel free to use that for your buyers. And also, because we're talking to this seminar is mainly geared towards sellers. If you are selling your property, go onto our website, and if you have a look at the advice downloads, there's 2 leaflets there that we set out about the process for buying, steps to help you, and the costs involved. There's nothing else from us. You know, we've run out of time today, but what I'd like to do is say thank you very much, James and Andy, for joining us on the seminar today. Thank you, everyone else. If you've got any questions, just kind of go onto our website, send us an email to inquiries@mylawyerinspain.com, and we look forward to seeing our next seminar, which will be next Friday at 3 o'clock, when we'll be talking about all things relating to litigation, all questions answered for re-litigation. And I won't be asking Andy and James to come to that one.
I hope not. I hope I've got no litigation issues to face.
No, absolutely none at all. But listen, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.